The WNBA just made the biggest mistake in professional sports history, and Caitlin Clark is about to make them pay for it in ways they never imagined. What started as whispers in league circles has exploded into an all-out bidding war that could destroy women's basketball as we know it. $15 million. That's the number being thrown around right now, and it's not coming from the WNBA. International leagues, streaming platforms, and even a mysterious group of investors are all lining up with their checkbooks open, ready to steal the one player who single-handedly saved women's basketball from irrelevance. But before I reveal who's behind these shocking offers, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe, because what you're about to hear will change everything you thought you knew about the future of women's sports. The betrayal started long before anyone realized what was happening. When Caitlin Clark arrived in the WNBA, she wasn't just another rookie, she was a cultural phenomenon who transformed empty arenas into sold-out spectacles overnight. The Indiana Fever went from averaging 4,000 fans to packing 20,000 screaming supporters into venues that hadn't seen that kind of energy in decades. Television ratings jumped 300% whenever she played. Jersey sales broke every record the league had ever seen. She was literally printing money for a league that had been bleeding cash for 28 years. And how did they repay her? With a contract so insulting that even her biggest critics called it criminal. $85,000 a year. That's what the WNBA thought Caitlin Clark was worth. Meanwhile, male rookies in the NBA were signing deals worth $13 million annually before they even played a single game. The disrespect was so blatant that international scouts started making phone calls immediately. They saw what the WNBA refused to acknowledge, that Clark wasn't just a player, she was an entire economy waiting to be unleashed. But that wasn't the whole story. What happened behind closed doors was even more shocking. Sources inside the league office reveal that certain veteran players actively lobbied against protecting Clark from the brutal treatment she was receiving on the court. Game after game, she was targeted with flagrant fouls that went unpunished. Hip checks that would have resulted in ejections in any other sport were ignored. The referees had apparently been given unofficial instructions to let things play out naturally, which translated to open season on the league's biggest star. One particularly nasty incident in January 2025 saw Clark take an elbow to the ribs that left her gasping for air on the court. The player who delivered it, she got a common foul and played the rest of the game while Clark needed medical attention. The message was crystal clear. The WNBA didn't value their golden goose enough to protect her. What happened next would shock everyone in the basketball world. A consortium of European leagues banded together with an unprecedented offer. $15 million for 2 years, private jet travel, luxury accommodations, and most importantly, a guarantee that she would be protected on the court. The offer leaked to the media in early February 2025, sending shockwaves through the sports world. But Europe wasn't the only player in this game. Sources close to the situation revealed that a major streaming platform was preparing to offer Clark her own league, built entirely around her brand. Think about that for a second. They weren't offering her a spot on a team, they were offering to create an entire competition with her as the centerpiece. The panic in WNBA headquarters was immediate and obvious. Emergency meetings were called, press releases were hastily written. Suddenly, the same executives who had ignored Clark's treatment all season were scrambling to save face. They announced new initiatives to protect players, increased marketing budgets, and promises of salary cap reforms. But it was too little, too late. The damage had been done, and everyone knew it. The league that had spent nearly 3 decades begging for mainstream attention had finally gotten it, only to fumble it away through pure arrogance and incompetence. Here's where things get really interesting. The Indiana Fever, realizing they were about to lose their meal ticket, went rogue. Team ownership bypassed the league office entirely and offered Clark a revolutionary deal. They couldn't match the international money directly due to salary cap restrictions, but they could get creative. Endorsement guarantees, revenue sharing from ticket sales, even a percentage of merchandise profits. The total package would push her earnings close to $5 million annually, still far below her market value, but a massive improvement over the insulting rookie scale. The problem? The WNBA threatened to void the deal, claiming it violated competitive balance rules. Think about that. The league was actively preventing its own team from keeping its biggest star happy. The situation reached a breaking point in late February 2025 when Clark's camp released a carefully worded statement. She expressed love for her teammates and fans, but notably didn't mention the league itself. She talked about exploring all options to grow the game of women's basketball, whether in the WNBA or elsewhere. That elsewhere sent chills down the spine of every league executive. They knew what it meant. She was seriously considering leaving, and if she did, she wouldn't be going alone, because here's what the WNBA failed to understand. Caitlin Clark had become bigger than basketball. She had sponsors lining up who didn't care what league she played in. Nike was reportedly preparing a signature shoe line that would launch regardless of where she played. State Farm, Gatorade, and a dozen other major brands had already indicated they would follow her wherever she went. She had transcended the sport itself to become a cultural icon, and cultural icons don't need permission from a struggling league to succeed. The other players started to notice too. Whispers in locker rooms suggested that several rising stars were watching Clark's situation closely. If she could make $15 million overseas, what were they worth? If she could force the creation of a new league, who would join her? The WNBA wasn't just risking losing one player, they were risking a mass exodus of talent that would leave them with nothing but empty arenas and canceled television contracts. Like and subscribe if you want to hear more about how this saga unfolds. Because trust me, we're just getting started. The timing couldn't have been worse for the league. 2025 was supposed to be their breakthrough year. New media deals were being negotiated. Expansion teams were being discussed. Corporate sponsors were finally taking women's basketball seriously. All of that momentum, all of that progress was built on the foundation of Caitlin Clark's popularity. Without her, the house of cards would collapse instantly, and everyone knew it, but the real bombshell dropped in early March 2025. A group of Silicon Valley investors, led by a billionaire tech mogul whose daughter played college basketball, announced they were exploring the creation of a rival women's basketball league. Their pitch was simple: higher salaries, better marketing, and most importantly, respect for the players who deserved it. They made it clear that Caitlin Clark would be their founding player, their Michael Jordan, their face of the franchise. The salary they were discussing, $20 million over 3 years, plus equity in the league itself. This wasn't just about money anymore. This was about revolution. The old guard of women's basketball, the players who had suffered through decades of disrespect and low pay, suddenly found themselves on the wrong side of history. They had spent so much time fighting for scraps that when someone finally brought a feast to the table, they tried to keep it for themselves instead of sharing it with the next generation. The irony was painful. The very players who had complained about inequality were now perpetuating it against their own. The fans saw through it immediately. Social media exploded with support for Clark. Hashtags like Save Caitlin and Respect22 trended for weeks. Petition sites crashed from the volume of signatures demanding the league protect its stars. Even celebrities who had never watched basketball were weighing in. The pressure was mounting from every direction, but the WNBA seemed paralyzed, unable or unwilling to make the changes necessary to keep their golden goose from flying away. Inside sources revealed that Clark had given the league an ultimatum, 3 demands that were non-negotiable. First, immediate salary cap reform that would allow stars to be paid their market value. Second, strict enforcement of flagrant foul rules with mandatory suspensions for targeting star players. Third, and most importantly, a public apology from the league office for their failure to protect and properly compensate the players who had transformed the WNBA from a charity case into a legitimate professional sport. The league's response was predictable and pathetic. They formed a committee to study salary structures. They promised to review officiating standards. They issued a vague statement about valuing all players equally. It was corporate speak for doing nothing, and everyone knew it. Clark's camp went silent after that, which somehow felt more ominous than any public threat could have been. Meanwhile, the international offers kept pouring in. The Chinese Basketball Association reportedly offered a staggering $25 million for a single season, though Clark's representatives quickly shot down any possibility of playing there. The Australian League made a compelling pitch that included partial team ownership. Even the Olympics got involved, with officials suggesting Clark could represent other nations if she obtained dual citizenship, a move that would have been the ultimate slap in the face to American basketball. The tipping point came during a game in mid-March 2025. Clark was driving to the basket when she took yet another hard foul, this time a deliberate shove that sent her crashing into the photographers. As she lay on the court, something changed. Her teammates, led by Aaliyah Boston, surrounded her protectively. They'd had enough. Boston helped Clark to her feet and could be seen saying something that made Clark smile for the first time in weeks. Later, reporters would learn that Boston had told her, "Whatever you decide, we've got your back." That moment of solidarity from her teammates might have been the only thing keeping Clark in the WNBA at that point, because while the league office fumbled and the veterans plotted, her actual teammates understood what she meant to their future. They saw the sold-out crowds, the national television games, the little girls wearing number 22 jerseys. They knew that losing Clark wouldn't just hurt the league, it would destroy everything they had worked for. The latest development, as of late March 2025, is perhaps the most shocking yet. Reports suggest that Clark has been in secret negotiations with a major sports network to create a documentary series about her decision-making process. The working title? The Price of Greatness. The series would apparently follow her as she weighs her options, meets with international teams, and ultimately makes a choice that could reshape women's sports forever. The network is reportedly offering $10 million for the rights, regardless of what decision she makes. Think about what that means. Caitlin Clark has become so valuable that networks will pay her millions just to document her thought process. She's turned her free agency into a cultural event, a reality show that millions would watch. She's not just playing basketball anymore, she's playing three-dimensional chess, while the WNBA is still trying to figure out checkers. The desperation from the league has become almost embarrassing. They've started floating trial balloons about special exemptions for generational talents, essentially admitting that Clark is different but still refusing to pay her accordingly. They've suggested marketing partnerships that would supplement her income without technically violating the salary cap. They've even hinted at making her the face of the league's 25th anniversary celebration, as if a ceremonial title could make up for months of disrespect and abuse. But here's the thing the WNBA still doesn't understand. This isn't about money anymore. It's about respect, protection, and recognition. Caitlin Clark didn't just want to be paid fairly, she wanted the league to acknowledge what she had done for them. She wanted them to protect her from the jealous veterans who saw her success as a threat. She wanted them to market her properly instead of treating her like just another player in a struggling league. She wanted what any transformational athlete deserves, to be treated like the treasure she was. The clock is ticking now. Clark's rookie contract runs through 2028, but international leagues are willing to buy it out. The rival league is preparing to launch in 2026 with or without her. The documentary series needs an answer by summer. Every day that passes without resolution is another day that the WNBA's reputation crumbles and their future dims. What makes this even more tragic is how preventable it all was. If the league had simply protected their star, paid her fairly, and marketed her properly, none of this would be happening. They would be riding a wave of popularity into a golden age of women's basketball. Instead, they're watching their meal ticket consider walking out the door, taking millions of fans and billions in potential revenue with her. The smart money says Clark stays, but not because the WNBA suddenly develops competence. She'll stay because she loves her teammates, her fans, and the idea of transforming American women's basketball from within. But make no mistake, the damage is already done. The league exposed itself as petty, short-sighted, and incompetent. They showed that they would rather protect the feelings of aging veterans than embrace the future. They proved that even when handed a gift from the basketball gods, they could find a way to fumble it. So what happens next? That's the $15 million question, literally. Will Caitlin Clark take the international money and leave the WNBA in ruins? Will she join the rival league and build something new from the ground up? Or will she stay and continue fighting for change in a league that seems determined to resist it? Whatever she decides, one thing is certain: the WNBA will never be the same, and they have no one to blame but themselves. The latest reports suggest an announcement could come any day now. Clark's camp has gone completely silent, which usually means something big is brewing. The international offers have deadlines approaching. The rival league needs to know if she's in or out. The documentary producers are pushing for drama. Everyone is waiting for Caitlin Clark to make a decision that will reshape women's sports forever. And when she does, when she finally reveals her choice, remember this moment. Remember when the WNBA had everything they could have wanted and threw it away through sheer stupidity. Remember when they chose protecting egos over protecting their future. Remember when they had Caitlin Clark in their hands and let her slip through their fingers. Because whether she stays or goes, this moment will define women's basketball for the next generation, and the WNBA will have to live with the consequences of their choices forever.